It's good to see so many of you after a long absence of person-to-person meetings. We have had a couple of online, and we did have the March meeting out at Hamilton, which was good to see some different EVs out there. That was, I think we had about 20 EVs turn up for that one. That was quite good. My chief clicker's back, so let's get underway. Tonight, I'm going to do my normal infrastructure events and general EV news, and then we've got Nick, who's come over from New Zealand to visit family, and he's going to give us an update on what's happening over there, and then Duncan's going to give us a couple of words about his very nice Kia EV6. One job, mate. All right, updates to EV infrastructure. This is going to start off a little pessimistic, unfortunately, but I do have some positive stuff towards the end of this section. So the honeymoon is over. So you may have seen this for anyone who's on PlugShare. These are the Quest chargers. They already show the announcement that on the ChargeFox app at least, that the 20 cents is over as of the 1st of May, pretty much at the end of this month, and they're going from 20 cents to 30 cents. So I just thought I would bring that to your attention. I think the Gold Coast ones are already 30 cents, so it's probably more in line with that. I got this email today that the honeymoon is also over for the ChargeFox 350 kilowatt chargers, which we only really have one at Toombul, or two at Toombul, and they're going from 40 cents a kilowatt hour to 60 cents a kilowatt hour. However, the thing still remains that if you're an RACQ member, that you get 20% discount, so that would equate to 42 cents. And of course the models that are aligned with the ChargeFox brand get their free charging, I think, as well still. Unfortunately, Toombul though is out of action until next year. So I rang the actual security guard to say, hey, what's the story with even just going there to charge? And yes, your car made it into the slide, yes. Toombul's really the premier spot for EV charging, as many of you would know. But the security guard said December at the very earliest, or at the beginning of next year is when the centre's opening. So they're running off a generator at the moment, is what he elaborated. So I don't think, not the chargers, just the centre. I don't know what fuel source they're using, mate. Probably just, wouldn't it just be off the power lines or something? I'm not sure. Right, so a bit more positive news. Callum, I think I reported this one last month. Callum Vale Central have put in this Elanga 50 kilowatt and some extra AC charging. But if you just go to the next slide, Les, the same charge is getting put in at Sunnybank Plaza as well. So the south side's finally getting some love, some more love. They're relatively close to each other, but they're getting the same equipment. And the next slide, I have, these are the two new chargers. And what's this one up here? Jindalee Home Supercentre. I have it on good authority, is getting a charger in there this month. So that's looking very positive for the south side. Nothing to report on the north side, unfortunately. The bay side though, the same person who elaborated about the Jindalee site said there's one going in May in Birkdale area. So finally the Bayside will have a DC fast charger. charging ahead, that's for sure. Right, and of course we have our Cleveland EV thing down here, so having one in this area would be very helpful. All right, that's it for the infrastructure stuff. Just some event news. Already mentioned what we did in March, and that was a good turnout at Hamilton. This weekend, I have sent out a lot of emails and notifications and mentioned it a lot of times, so hopefully some of you are coming along to this. But on Saturday, we've got from 10 to 1 at Victoria Park. I think the address is, I think it's promoted as Hurston, but the address is on the screen there. Yeah, there's already going to be 20 to 30 EVs there, so it should be already a good turnout. If you need any further contact details about that, just let me know and I'll give you some contact details. Future EV events. Gary, did you want to say a couple of words? So Gary's one of our members from Toowoomba who's come down tonight and is the main person responsible for organising this. So.
Oh, thanks. Thanks everybody. My name's Gary Young, come from Toowoomba, as he said. So we're trying to get a Toowoomba branch of the AEVA going, and one of the things we wanted to do was have a bit of an event. So we've got the Oki Army Aviation Museum. We've planned an event there for the 30th of April, which is not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. So everybody's invited if you want to come on up and attend. Spotted around the hall here today are some QR codes, so just click on the QR codes with your phones and that gives you that information. We would appreciate if you could register just so we have an idea of numbers that will come on the day. There's no charge to register, that's just me to do a bit of bookkeeping. You will pay $10 at the door for the museum, but that is a guided tour. So if you don't want a guided tour, it's $7 at the door, but $10 is my recommendation because we actually get someone who knows the aircraft. So Oki Army Aviation is a museum that the Army runs up there with First World War, Second World War. I think there may have been something from the Korean War and the Middle East stuff. So there's helicopters, airplanes, trucks, uniforms, weapons, and then personal gear from various soldiers. It's a really interesting display and well worth the trip if you can make it up there. Good news is Toowoomba does have a few chargers, not to the extent you have down here in Brisbane, but plenty of support for the Tesla motor vehicles, and there is a cash charger at Charlton for the other vehicles. And there's something at the Clifford Gardens shopping center as well. There's two, I think they're 20 kilowatt or something. They're smaller units, but there's charging up there. The museum has 10 amp power points outside as well, which they said we're welcome to use. Picnic tables, barbecues are available. My intention is we go through and enjoy a bit of a tour, and then there's time we can spend outside with a picnic, just get together and have a bit of a yarn, and the day goes where the day goes from there. At this point, it's on my understanding we've got good weather.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. It's great to have the support of other regions as well in the Queensland branch. So, yeah, this is all little bits and pieces going towards... There's a lot of stuff happening around Queensland, actually. So there's little pockets of interest all over the place. Les and Mitch. You going to this, Mitch? The planes, trains and autos?
Sure.
Oh, well, they're only... This is not really an EV event, but it's... If anyone... we are looking for one Tesla or production car. We've got one Leaf. What, the 40 kilowatt hour?
No, but got one at work.
Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. Yep. But this is on anyway. This is not an actual EV event, but they have requested a couple of EVs attend, so I've mentioned it a couple of times, but that's on the same weekend as the Toowoomba event, but it's not really an EV event, just letting you guys know. I've organised the next EV catch-up to be at the Pimpama Sports Hub. That's on the Facebook group for anyone who... I don't think I've sent that one out on the email yet, so I'll do that. But 6th of May, 4 p.m. onwards. If you can't get there that earlier time, then there'll still be people hanging around. We always do. But at the Pimpama Sports Hub, they have 3 of the 75 kilowatt chargers there, so seems like and lots of bays, so it seems like a decent place to have a bit of an EV meetup. And the Gold Coast guys actually hit me up quite a few times to have a meetup, and that's where they suggested, so I'm pandering to my constituency. All right, just a quick rundown of some of the other stuff that's coming up. In June at Yeppoon, there's the Capricorn Coast Landcare having an EV display. Arthur just sent me an email to contact him if anyone's watching online that lives in the Gladstone or Rockhampton area. You can look at this weekend and take your EV down to display. And the EcoFest at Gladstone, contact Anna on that number. I've said this before, 19th of June, Noosa EV Expo and RACQ Motorfest, unfortunately on the same weekend. The Electric Dreams is at the RNA Showground on the 2nd and 3rd of July. We'll be attending that one. The AEVA National Conference is in ACT on the 5th to the 7th of August. At Gympie, the Envirotech Day that we've previously attended is on the 6th of August. And Gary, is it the 11th of August we're doing? 11th of September, sorry. 11th of September, we're doing the Cleveland EV Experience again. So plenty happening. And plus we'll have all the hall meetings and EV catch-ups amongst that as well. One other thing I did want to mention, I forgot to mention it in the charging infrastructure stuff, is that most of you may already know that most of the free chargers are down. So there was a note on PlugShare that the St. Lucia charger is getting replaced yesterday, and it hasn't been replaced, but it went underwater, so that one's offline indefinitely, I would say, till it's replaced. The Gardens Point one is getting replaced. The Kelvin Grove Library one is constantly out of order, so that's potentially getting replaced. But I believe the one under the stadium is still working, but you have to pay for parking there. So yeah, so you got Hamilton, DFO. That's about it for the city. We've lost quite a few, unfortunately, especially the free ones. I think that 900 millimetres in 3 days has probably put a spanner in the works for a lot of things. A lot of places went under that would never have seen that amount of water before, but I would only assume that it's just a case of electrical and water don't mix very well. So who would know if the transformers also get damaged and all that type of stuff. I'm only making an assumption, but just in the EV news, you would have heard that new cars purchased from July 1, we can pretty much buy one now and get your receipt if it's under 58,000. And Nathan, who is normally one of our speakers at the hall meetings, spoke with the minister, and we had the Kona and his Honda. So that was good. I lent my Kona out to the Channel 9 News and they drove around and did the actual talking that was on the news that night from inside the Kona, so that was pretty funny to see. But yeah, so the next slide though is a bit of a breakdown of what you can get that's under 58,000. And unfortunately I have to put my pessimistic hat back on, because right now, it's the Nissan Leaf 40 kilowatt hour or Hyundai Ioniq 40 kilowatt hour. They're the only 2 cars you can get. The Renault Kangoo. I always forget the Kangoo, but I don't know if there's many Kangoo ZEs getting around, but they are available. So at the actual press conference, they were saying there's about 7 or 8, and these ones are on the list, but they're not here yet. So I guess if you're planning on getting one of these, it's a good time to really consider it if you're getting $3,000 off as well. But the Kona, this was listed. Now the Kona, for anyone who's not that familiar, has come out with a similar size battery pack to the Ionic. It's essentially 3 of 5. So my car has 5 packs. So my car has 5 packs, and the new smaller range or standard range Kona is going to have 3 of those 5. So it's a 42 kilowatt hour battery pack instead of 67. And from what I could see on car sales, there was only 4 entries on there. The base model, white, is meant to be, and all these are with on-road costs included, right? So the point I was going to make was that it's probably 60,000 with on-road costs rather than 58,000 and then adding on-road costs. So around 60,000. The Kona is meant to be 54,500, but then you have stamp duty, dealer delivery, registration. So that does bump it up, and it's so close to the threshold, it's not funny. So I'm not entirely sure whether the Kona makes it in. The new MG, the Atto 3 and the Great Wall Aura Good Cat, definitely going to make it in when they're available, but don't have. I rang MG and they said that stock is arriving by August. So if you are interested in the new refresh of the MG, I think that will be quite popular, especially with 3,000 off. Yeah, it's a good time. Have I missed any? Can anyone think of any that I've missed? I think that's about it. So yeah, 2 plus the Kangoo. All right, that's enough from me. Nick from NZ. Thank you for coming all that way.
Yeah, I'm a bit tired of flying over. Hey everyone, how are you?
Right. Just over here, bud. And
yeah, I'm just going to load just my notes up.
Yeah, just pop it over here.
All right. Cheers. Thanks. How are you? I'm a Queenslander, but I'm over here visiting my parents. And I've been a long time lurker of the Facebook page, and I thought, I might as well just reach out and see if I have a bit of a chat, because there's some interesting stuff that's happened in New Zealand and the EV industry. And a bit about me, I work in the energy industry, work for an energy distributor focusing on future energy products. So I sit in the EV space and DER space. So it's quite an exciting time over there. And thought just a bit of an update on what's happening, because some regulation stuff and there's some consumer stuff, and I think there's a bit of an opportunity to sort of, point what's happening overseas to help some local people get their heads in the game a little better on at least the EV space. So we'll just go to the. So I've worked in energy for 12 years now, so a lot of data, and now it's focusing on flexibility services, so trying to unlock the sort of the value of an EV and how you can use it to help provide grid services. So one of the biggest things that's happened in very recent times in New Zealand is they've put in emission standards for vehicles. So as you know, there's probably only 3 countries in the world that really don't have emission standards. Australia is one of them, New Zealand was one. So they've actually put emission standards in for vehicles. And then effectively that was the shot across the bow saying, well, you want to bring a vehicle in? Doesn't matter if it is petrol, diesel, but here's the emissions standards it needs to meet. And they've effectively created a, they're calling it the clean car rebate, but there's a stick and then there's a carrot for all the vehicle manufacturers. So it comes down to tailpipe emissions. So what effectively they're doing is they're saying if you want to bring a petrol diesel vehicle in, depending on its tailpipe emissions per kilometre, you could pay $1,500 to import that $5,000 to import that vehicle. So that's the stick. At the other end is the carrot. If you want to bring in a zero emission vehicle or a low emission vehicle, you could get up to $8,600 back from the government as the incentive. And I tell you what, as soon as that came in, guess what every manufacturer was delivering to New Zealand? Low emission vehicles. So it shows you that, and that, I think they set it to Euro 6 standard is what they're working off. So a lot of the vehicles suddenly started coming in with lower tailpipe emissions, and suddenly all the EVs that we hadn't seen in the Southern Hemisphere before, it started arriving very quickly as well. And then that's been relatively new. So that's from 1st of April that kicked in, but in actual fact, the government was funding it out of their own budget from September last year. Now it's supposed to be self-funding. So effectively the fees charged to the high-emitting vehicles are there to pay for the rebates back. So it's a pretty cool thing. So they're talking high emissions are 192 grams per kilometre, and I didn't realise it until I saw that on paper. That you think about what 192 grams per kilometre looks like if you're driving hundreds of thousands of kilometres a day, and it's a lot of emissions. So there also is a zero band. So that's where it's low enough that it might be like I think Suzuki Swift or something like that, very low emission vehicle, actually doesn't have any fees on it, but then it doesn't get any rebate back. So there's sort of a price point for everyone, because obviously not everyone can afford to get into an electric vehicle, so they wanted to make sure that the vehicles coming in were still able to be zero costs. And it's important to note that these are only for new imports or used imports. So in New Zealand you can actually import a used vehicle. A lot of Japanese imports. I myself had a Japanese import Nissan Leaf, 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf. So you can import a second-hand vehicle, and as long as it's newly registered in New Zealand, it's available to that. So there's a lot of ships coming in from Japan at the moment with second-hand vehicles. So just the driver for this was New Zealand's commitment to net zero by 2050. So they've signed that into law. And now all the ministerial processes kick in. Money becomes assigned. Government departments now have to meet emission standards for their vehicle fleet. I mean, in New Zealand, I don't like it's over here, but it's about 40% of all emissions is vehicle transport emissions. So, vehicles are a good target to start reducing those. We'll just go to the next one. So this is just a snapshot of actually what the Clean Car program looked like. It just provides some examples there. Ford Ranger will cost you an extra $2,700 to bring in to the country, and that's paid by the importer. Naturally, that gets handed over at the ticket price. Hilux $2,900, and you go down to the zero band just to make sure that CX-5, an Outlander, or Vitara. They actually don't have any cost there, so there's still some vehicles in that aren't necessarily penalising people. And you go down the rebates, obviously it's anything that's a full EV, brand new full EV, gets the full $8,600 back. And I got that in November, and I actually received my rebate before my car arrived. So that was all pretty cool. But also plug-in hybrids are also available to that as well. So the plug-in Outlander will get $5,700 back if it's a newly imported EV. So they've certainly set the government set the target for the vehicle manufacturers to say, well, here's what you've got. Here's your target. You can bring in any vehicle you want, but you will be paying for it, and ultimately the consumer will be paying for it. And so they are starting to see, low emissions vehicles come in pretty quickly. So we'll just go to the next one. It's sort of a breakdown of the grams per kilometre of emissions. So anything basically. So this is for a rebate, anything up to 146. Effectively, they've got some math that they convert. We'll just go to the next one for the fees. So this is just effectively how they're calculating the fees. So they look at the tailpipe emissions and then they do some math, and it's $50 is the fee per gram per kilometre. They are intending that to be rising over time. So I haven't got the details on me, but effectively I think they said it's going to go up to about $140 over time. So, a sliding scale for the vehicle manufacturers to basically start bringing in low emission vehicles. We'll go to the next one. So this is just they've built a whole website around this. So if I was looking to buy a vehicle, I could go onto the website and actually see what I'd get back. And that's there to show that obviously we don't want dealers clipping the ticket on some of this money, because ultimately, it needs to go back to the purchaser. But you can go on and you can actually see what rebate you're potentially going to get back. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, and that's what the fees would be potentially. So Hyundai Kona, petrol, $2,400 there. What they're also doing, just go to the next one please, they're putting emission stickers on all the vehicles. So they've actually legislated that all vehicles need to have these new emission stickers to actually show you what the rebates will be and the tailpipe emissions. So you can compare safety with emissions when you're making a purchasing decision. I think that was one of the big things that they realised, that they wanted to make people well informed when they were making a decision on a vehicle and have that data available to them and have it standardised across, so you didn't get sort of dealer speak or manufacturer speak. You could actually get a standard approach, and the basically average running costs a year for that vehicle. So that's been quite well received as far as I understand. People can base their purchasing on the cost of the vehicle running and the emissions, and effectively green, obviously that's a good. They've made it red on purpose. No one wants to see red when they're buying a car, and they've actually made that on purpose. That they don't want you looking at a car like that, especially when it says fee in big red letters. So that's come into place now. So it's quite an interesting concept, and as I said, I think it's been reasonably successful. And we'll just go to the next slide. So and here's just what the new ones would look like, where there is no fee. So effectively, it's already registered or it's excluded from the new labelling system. I thought I'd show you what the uptake of EVs looks like in New Zealand. You probably already know, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's quite interesting. So we'll just go to the next one. That's been the uptake over time. So the Transport Ministry publishes registration stats every month, and they break it down to suburb, type of vehicle, whether it's a company or private. So I've extracted some of the data from that. And that blue line is when the Clean Car Standard came into effect. And you can clearly see that it was a step change in the amount of registrations coming in. With a significant portion still being new vehicles, but also a bunch of light vehicles coming in. And I think around here is where Tesla dropped their price, and so it started people going a bit crazy over there with the Teslas. But you can see it slow basically increase over time of electric vehicles. And I think there's about almost 40,000 EVs registered in New Zealand at the moment. And we'll just go to the next slide. And this is the breakdown of hybrid to pure electric. And I think it's an interesting one to show that whilst there is a fair amount of plug-in hybrids available, they're still very keen on BEVs. So the highest selling vehicle on the EV side is a pure electric in New Zealand. Obviously individuals, but you'll see there's a large amount of companies actually now purchasing those vehicles for their fleet. Let's go to the next one. So and this is the blue line up there. I just wanted to point out. So that was sort of late 2021, fourth quarter, when the Clean Car Standard come in. You can see the big jump in corporates buying vehicles. Effectively, they were waiting for incentives from the government to start transitioning their fleet. So pool vehicles, ones they give their employees. And there's been a huge uptick in that, aligned with organisations implementing their own sustainability action plans and their decarbonisation strategies. So they're trying to convert all their fleets away from petrol. And so big uptick in effectively companies buying vehicles, and the government is incentivising the companies to buy them because ultimately they roll into the second-hand market, which is where most people will be buying their vehicles from, or most people buy their vehicles from the second-hand market in New Zealand, and that will obviously lower the costs ultimately in the second-hand market, and bringing in NZ News. So yeah, they're certainly incentivising companies to purchase vehicles. Let's go to the next one. Bit of shameless plug share. That's the amount of charges. And if I started zooming in, you'll see them everywhere. But the target for New Zealand is a charger every 75 kilometres at a minimum. And that's to cover, obviously, the highways. But you get into more dense areas and there's one every, I don't know. I live in a place called Parapara, and it's 5 kilometres long, and we've got 8 high-speed chargers. And a lot of them are dual chargers as well. So they don't, because there's a lot of stacking problems, they might as well just start installing dual chargers whenever they install one charger. So a lot of my work is getting those installed, getting the guys to dig holes and plug it in transformers and that sort of stuff. But so as you can see, the whole of the country's covered in mostly 50 kilowatt tritium chargers. There's a bunch of, so we've got a couple of private companies running their own systems as well. And inside that, there's a bunch of free ones, which in itself is a bit of a problem. So most of we've got 2 companies running charging networks, ChargeNet and OpenLoop. There's also a couple of companies that have installed free chargers. And I don't know if I got it over here, but a free charger is just bedlam because there's someone who parks there for the whole day, and the plug's locked in and you can't disconnect it. So there's a lot of perverse outcomes with free chargers. So at least the idea here that they're taking in New Zealand is to not have free charging because it doesn't generate the right behaviour because there's so many vehicles on the road. And there's a lot of companies that are using that. So they'll drive their branded company car and just plug it in there for half the day. So they get free charging, free parking, and go do some work. So we can just go on to the next one. So, yeah.
How much does the kilowatt hour charge from the fast chargers?
Great question. So the main company is called ChargeNet. They're 25 cents per kilowatt hour
25.
and 25 cents per minute. So they've got a time and kilowatt hour charge there. That's been their strategy for a while. So it can be quite expensive, especially if you need 40 minutes to charge up. But yeah, it's a timed one as well. Cool. So, and I think that the Tesla superchargers, one of the most remote ones, is 80 cents a kilowatt hour because it's like in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, it took a lot of cost to get energy to there. So one of the other avenues that the government's offshoot, which is a department called AEVA, is doing, is a low emission transport fund. They're putting in $25 million a year to support projects, to do electric vehicle projects that otherwise wouldn't be viable unless they had government funding. So it's a co-funding arrangement. So basically you come up with a project, if they accept it, they pay 50% of the costs and you pay 50% of the costs to get that. And a lot of all the charges that you saw there were basically co-funded by the government because the government saw that there's no point having emission standards and bringing in EVs if the charging infrastructure isn't there to support it. So they went ahead of that and started implementing the infrastructure before they implemented the clean car standard. So 500 plus chargers across New Zealand. Most of them have been co-funded by the government. So I thought, if I've got enough time, just to show you some of the projects that has been funded because there's some pretty cool, interesting stuff in there that I'll just talk to a little bit. So we'll just go to the next slide. So they're starting to deploy dual 300 kilowatt chargers everywhere, the hyper chargers. I don't know. They're an Italian brand. No, they're not the AEV ones. Yeah.
No, it's Albion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Albion and the brand name is Albion.
Yeah. So yeah, they're deploying those ones. So I don't think Tritium have hyperchargers yet, but I suspect they'll go Tritium if they did come out with some.
No, they're...
Do they? Okay.
No, they're unsuitable. There's not enough space at Bombay Hills, so they wouldn't those.
Yeah. So they're deploying those everywhere. Effectively, they won't deploy 50 kilowatts now anymore because they were deploying 250 kilowatts per site. Now they can, when one of those will do 3 vehicles at once, or it will do one Porsche Taycan, if you wanted to get the 350 out of it. But yeah, a lot of the approaches are dual site as well, just to acknowledge that, ramping issues become a problem and then want to remove that. Let's go to the next one. Fully electric truck. They're doing some battery swap projects, which is pretty interesting. But that thing runs around Auckland of a day, delivering goods. Drivers are happy. Everyone's happy. I don't have the stats, but I can get it to you. But that's one of the projects they funded. And that battery swap, I don't know much about it. It's a bit of an interesting concept, I suspect, but I think it's in its infancy. And a lot of it's just retrofitting existing trucks to take a battery. Let's go to the next one. Another delivery truck which is supermarkets, basically Woolworths or Coles. And yet they're delivering goods to the supermarkets from the depots in Wellington. So that's Wellington, that's where I'm from, and that's Wellington on a good day before the rain is sideways and it's freezing. As I said, they're deploying, ECA's deploying the 300 kilowatt chargers around the place as well. With another one. Fully electric ferry. It's operating out of Wellington. It's pretty cool, actually. I've been on it a couple of times. It runs from Queen's Wharf through to Island Bay and does the commuter service. Because I don't know if you know Wellington, it's a big bay, and so people live on that side and they need to get to this side, and so take a ferry. So yeah, 100% fully electric. It's got regen on it as well. That's a 350 kilowatt charger on the wharf that they charge it off of, a 300 kilowatt charger. Just beside the water there, and they plug it in and let it charge up while it's taking on passengers. Pretty interesting concept. I understand the cost to get that charger installed would make everyone's eyes water. It needed, for energy nerds, 1 MVA transformer, dedicated transformer, and it's in the middle of a city where there's not a lot of power available. So it was a lot of cost to get that thing there. And so they've got a charger here, and they've also got a slower charger over at the other end in their port where they charge overnight. So this is for the 15 minutes they've got to turn around, passengers before they take out again. But yeah, it's a very cool boat. All carbon fibre, effectively. It's basically carbon fibre. When they were building it, it was all about weight. And we'll just go to the next one. That's me in a fully electric ute. So LDV bought the ute out to me before I came over here to show me. It's just our depot, and so we have a lot of utes in our fleet. And obviously to lower our emissions, we'd like to see some more utes basically, and that's the LDV dual cab. Yeah, I think it. No, it's starts with S. SIAC. SIAC. Yeah. It's a left-hand drive. That's why I'm sitting there driving it left-handed. 82 kilowatt hours battery, 320 kilometre range, 1 tonne towing capacity. And
300 k's for 80 kilowatt hours.
Yeah, and that's me standing with it. But so we took it for a drive, and it just managed to get the back end out a little bit, but they do map the throttle so you can't fishtail it. But I mean, it's a ute, so whoever says that they don't exist, you can shut. It's two-wheel drive. Two-wheel drive, yeah. Oh. Yeah, rear-wheel drive though.
I think you need to turn on the traction control.
Yeah, but so we'll see that October. and at least the company I work for will be getting a couple to try. First gen, you know, you give it a nudge. It's not going to work for all our it's not going to work for all our purposes, but yeah, I thought it was really interesting because I hadn't seen it yet. You know, everyone talks about the Rivian and the F-150 Lightning, but you know, they don't exist until they land on shores, and this is officially there. I've touched it, I've seen it, and it's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, I don't think I've got any more. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, so we'll go on to the next one. So just the company I work for, we've got a bunch of the LDV EV80 ones, and that's a substation. So the guys go work in substations and they just charge it in at the substation. They carry heavy stuff and no one complains. So yeah, it's a pretty good little workhorse for us. So we've got a couple of those now. I'll just let you show it plugged in. I've got another one. I know you know who Hayden Paddon is. He's a rally driver. He's a New Zealand rally driver. That's his EV rally car that he designed from the ground up. So he is racing. He's done one New Zealand race in it, but he's trying to get into the World Rally Championship circuit. It's a Hyundai with basically just a shell of a Hyundai built from the ground up. Interesting concept that he has made a proprietary sound in it, because apparently sound is great for rally cars, especially from a safety perspective, because you can hear them coming. So he's put a mechanical sound in there to, I guess, make it sound cool and interesting on the track. But yeah, apparently it goes like the clappers. It's ridiculous. So, and it's a proprietary battery system, that sort of stuff. So it's quite cool. And next one, full electric plane. So it's what they call it's a trainee pilot's plane. So it's not designed to go long distances. It's designed to train people. Just runs a Nissan Leaf motor and battery setup in it. That's just at my local airport. So I thought, oh, this is a cool, interesting thing. And it's just the charger there. So it's got regen as well. So when they dip it down, it regens back up. And it has a parachute on the roof. So if you ever get into trouble, they pull the parachute, and it destroys the undercarriage, I've been told, but will, you know, survivable for the people in there. But that's getting around the air at the moment. Yeah, they're training pilots in it. So the math on that, it's $250 an hour to run versus $400 an hour for a normal plane, which then has, you know, the inspection periods, you know, every so many flight hours. I think he said every 400 hours they just look at it. Yeah, it's all good. No dramas. The only issue that they do have is temperature of the battery, you know, heating up, so you can't do too many charges and too many runs. But yeah, it's a cool little plane, and I think I do have anything next. No, that's it. Anyway, I just thought I'd give you a bit of an update. If you've got any questions, please come see me. But yeah, I just thought I'd try and nerd out a little bit here on EVs, and cool, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Just running through my mind was, during that presentation, was if Jacinda Ardern was running for Prime Minister of Australia at the moment, would she get in or not? And I think we all know the answer to that. All right, Duncan, you're up. The EV6 on display. Duncan's offering free test rides after this. Nah, just joking. But 8 days old, so we thank him very much for bringing such a new car, a prized possession, this early on. So,
do you want to do that?
Go for it, mate.
All I was going to talk about today was actually how I got the car, because I was going to buy the Ioniq 5 and got mucked around as most people did, and I found it was better to put my name down with 3 different dealers, put deposits with 3 different dealers, and one of them called me and said, you can have one in July. So I told him what I wanted, and then a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, he rang up and said, the car's here, do you want it now? So I had to race around, sell my other car and find some money. So, but it's a lovely car to drive.
So for those of you that haven't met Duncan before, you had a Mitsubishi Outlander.
Yep.
FEV.
Yep.
and we had a bit of a chat about how the economics of that went.
Yeah, I did.
The purchase and the sale price.
I did about 30,000 kilometres in the car, and it only cost me about, I think it was either $800 or $900 in fuel, because most of it was all local stuff. So solar panels on the roof, it was always charged every morning. I have batteries at home, so it was running all night from my solar during the day. So every day I would get a couple of trips, 30 or 40 k's each.
And we're in a bit of a false economy at the moment with sale prices.
Yeah.
So,
well, I paid about $55,000 for the car, had it 3 years, and put it on the market for a quick sale at $41,000 and sold it for $40,000 4 hours later. So people want them.
yeah. Could have got more, mate.
Oh, I could have, but I needed the money to get this.
And why wouldn't you? So,
Yeah.
all right. What trim level is it?
It's the top trim level. It's not the fast one, but now I've driven this, I don't need the fast one.
Okay.
This is plenty fast enough.
Yep. Battery size?
It's a 74 kilowatt battery.
Okay.
It has an amazing heads-up display.
Expected range on the GOM?
480.
480?
And from what I've seen, it will probably do it.
If you don't press on the pedal
Well,
every corner.
I haven't actually. I put it into sport mode once because I was showing somebody how well it went, and I took off up the highway, and they couldn't believe it. And I said, "Oh shit, we could have gone faster." So I put it in sports mode and did it again. It's quite different.
Yeah.
It's supposed to do 0 to 100 in 5.4, but I think it's under 5. We've only done it on a GPS on a phone, but it can't be that far out.
Okay. Excellent. Do you mind telling people how much it cost?
A lot of
You don't
money.
have to. Yeah.
It cost me $91,500.
Wow.
And my wife, I think she would have divorced me, but she's driven it now, so
Yeah.
she understands. It's an amazing thing to drive. I can let it drive itself, but my wife likes to take over. It steers itself, it brakes, it speeds up, it locks onto the car in front of you, so it'll go right down to a stop, and if that car takes off, it'll take off again. It has the radar cruise control, it has speed limiters, auto hold, iPedal. I can see that I'm going to get rusty brakes because I don't use them. So, and I washed it today and found rust on them already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, it's a lot of fun.
Questions?
It's a lot of fun.
Did they offer you the vehicle to load stuff with it?
Yeah, it's got all that.
Yeah, the plug today.
Yeah, it's got the socket inside and then the auxiliary one to plug in.
Have you used it yet?
No,
So dual motor or rear motor?
dual. Yeah, I think the rear motor's 70-odd thousand. So,
Well, we appreciate you bringing that in to show us.
no problem.
91,000 is such a...
Yeah, I didn't get a rebate.
It's such a, it's such an unfortunate situation that such nice cars do cost that much money, isn't it? But who knows? Hopefully, with the trajectory that we're on over time, these cars eventually come down.
I think that sort of money you could buy a reasonable quality Mercedes and not get half the gear that's got.
Yeah.
So,
How was your dealer experience?
lousy. He didn't know anything about the car. So that handover, I knew more about the car than he did.
Does that give you a good feeling when it goes into servicing?
No, but I probably won't go there. I had the windows tinted and I had a a camera system put in. And then I realised after I had that done, that all goes on your luxury car tax as well. So for a $1,500 camera and some window tint, I end up paying another $500 in tax. So I won't do that again.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did anyone else have anything they wanted to speak about tonight? Come up, mate. Go for go.
Hi, people. Look, I'm Bernard Lakey. I just wanted to let you know that I'm actually the Australian Greens candidate for the federal seat of Bonner, and that I'm obviously standing at the next election coming through. Just listening to our friend from New Zealand talk about cars and what they're doing in New Zealand, it's astounding, and it's really made me think about how you can promote electric vehicles in Australia. The current government, of course, is not really interested in them. This morning I was at a breakfast meeting with a LNP candidate, Mr Ross Vasta, and he sat down and told the audience how much he had done to support the electric car industry in Australia, and was happily boasting about the fact that tritium is in the electorate of Bonner. But I was able to tell him that he has not really supported the electric car industry one bit in the system. So, look, that's my background. I'm happy to talk about policies on behalf of the Greens if that's of any interest to anybody. I don't wish to make it a political statement or a political campaign. I really just wish to let you know that I am standing, that I am passionate about electric vehicles. And if anybody follows a magazine or a website called Clean Technica, is it familiar with that? There's an article on there about me called The Eco Warrior, which got written up and put through the system. So that's my background, and that's where I'm passionate, and that's what I wish to achieve. But look, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, no worries. Well, that's it for tonight. We're going to have... Oh, sorry. Up you come. I thought you were pointing at him before.
No, I was not.
Okay.
I did my hand for
Up you come.
attention. Okay. I'm just wondering if my attempt to send out that survey, the household energy survey from PowerLink, came through on your email. I didn't get any response, but did people see it? Yeah. Great. Did anyone fill it out? Yeah, great. Okay. Well, that all helps, because there were a lot of questions in there about electric vehicles. Yeah, like how fast does it charge? I don't know. Don't even know how to work it out. But anyway, I'm glad it all happened. Great. It'll help us.
Those emails definitely go out. Finally, up you come, mate.
Just a quick question. I've got a friend up in Windsor, and I'd like to visit. If anybody's got any advice about charging on the way, please let me know. It's pretty impossible from what I can see. You can go up the spine of the coast of Queensland, but inland, forget it.
Yeah, that is true. What most people tend to do is stay overnight in caravan parks and charge at the caravan parks. So it's not, I don't believe it's the case you can kind of just go there in one hit. But Hewenden is also in the middle of nowhere, so you know, these things take time. There is a slide I normally put on most months about what the rollout is, and the phase 3 rollout of the Queensland Electric Superhighway. I think Hewenden's getting a charger. So when are you doing your trip?
Oh, anytime.
If you wait 12 months, there might even be one there. So, all right, that's it, guys. Time for a social chat. And check out the EV6. Thank you very much, and we'll call it there. Thanks.